Good morning, everybody. I wanted to share some more thoughts this morning about George Floyd's death and just racism in our country. I spent my week listening. I spent my week listening to my friends who are pastors that are black and friends who are black and to some strangers as well, and just listening with my heart, listening with my head, just listening and taking it in. The other thing I've spent a lot of time this week doing is just praying at home, praying on Zoom with other pastors, praying in my county, driving around and praying for my county, and made a couple trips to Richmond this week, praying with other pastors and other Christians. And I know a lot of change needs to happen in our country, and I feel like we are at this moment where in this generation there is an opportunity, if the will is there, to move the needle on the issue of racism. But there's just got to be a lot of open hearts and open minds and just listening. And obviously, as believers, we got to do a lot of praying, because there's a lot of change that needs to happen. One of my greatest hopes, though, is that the greatest transformative power in the universe is Jesus Christ. And his power to transform a heart is unparalleled. The way that the book of Ezekiel says is that God can take out a stony heart and that he can put in a heart of flesh and a new spirit. And that's my greatest hope. That's what I spend my life doing, is letting people know that following Jesus is the greatest decision you can make in your life, and he can transform and heal and do so much inside of all of us. I want to share two simple things that I've been learning as I've been listening this week, and I hope it's helpful to you. These aren't necessarily profound, but I think they're really important. And as I've been listening, I just want people to maybe be able to learn something from what I'm hearing and what I'm learning as I'm listening and praying. Number one is simply that, not all black people feel the same about this issue. There's a really wide range, and I don't mean that there aren't categories and generalizations, but I think if you are not a person of color, don't categorize all people as thinking the same. I don't think you should assume. I think you should ask, and then just listen and become that safe place. I've really tried this week to just try to be a safe place and listen and listen and listen. And I'm finding that there's a wide range of how people feel, how people think, that it's not monolithic, that people don't think the same. And it's been helpful to me to know that, because there's a complexity to what's going on that I think is really important for us to understand. We can't oversimplify the issue of racism in our country. The second thing is, I learned that I need to connect with the pain. Now, I don't mean that like I can walk around and say, I feel your pain, or I understand your pain, or anything like that. I don't mean that. I mean that I'm here, and as you feel the pain, I want to be here with you. I want to listen. I want to understand, because I think it goes a long way, because our hearts matter, and having our hearts engaged in this issue is a big deal. I was on a call with a group of pastors earlier this week, and in this call they had 3 African American pastors sharing their experiences and frankly challenging us white pastors. It was a safe place, and it was a good place to do it. And one of the things that came across this call, it was a real Holy Spirit moment, was as these pastors began to share their pain and the pain of the community began to come through this Zoom call. And I witnessed something that was amazing. I watched 3 white pastors over the age of 50 break down in tears on this call. And they're just weeping. And it was the pain. It was the pain that these men and their community felt came through in a way. And they said, I've never been affected by this issue like I was. And the reason was because they weren't just listening. They were listening. It was really profound. It was a moment I don't think I'll soon forget. I think that the thing that doesn't connect with many of us is that for many people, when they saw a foot on George Floyd's neck, they felt that foot on their own pain and the pain of their community. It's like that foot struck a nerve inside of them, and they felt that pain throughout their whole soul. And that really impacted me as I've seen it and felt it and heart to heart. And the thing is you can't feel it in a closed off conversation. You can't feel it from afar. You got to get up close, and you got to have courage to get up close, ask the hard questions, and just listen. Don't be defensive, just listen. An illustration that really helped me this week was somebody said that, when your wife goes into labor, you can't feel her pain, but you can be in the room, and you can comfort her, and you can be helpful. And I really identified with that, having 4 children and watching my wife bear the pain of that. It's an amazing thing that a woman, does in that circumstance. And that's a great analogy for us in going to a community that is feeling pain. We're not in the pain, but we can get there. And the reality is, sitting on the sideline isn't good enough. I think the catchphrase right now, or the phrase in our communities that is going around, is now you need to be anti-racist. I heard this analogy this week. Somebody said that the devil considers you either a pawn or he considers you the adversary. I think that's a great question. He considers you a pawn if you do nothing. He considers you his adversary if you do something. I think that's really powerful. So here's my encouragement to you today. Would you get in the room? Would you listen? And when you're listening, listen with your heart. And would you just pray and listen to God and listen for his heart? Because the reality is, there is a humanity out there, all of humanity, and every person has value. And Jesus said, unto the least of these, and that's my challenge. Who do I treat the worst? Who's lowest in my heart? Because that's the person that I need to lift up. And as I lift up that person in my own heart, I lift everybody up. And so that's my personal challenge for me. Hey, thanks for listening today to my heart and my journey.